dialogue is truly a make or break of any piece of media. It can fully immerse the viewer into the world, or can awkwardly remind them of bad writing. Most media falls somewhere in between, where the dialogue isn't stellar, but it's good enough to deliver the story. However, there are rare cases where dialogue is so natural it feels like a real conversation. Shows like MTV's Downtown absolutely nail this, where it sounds like you're just hanging around a group of friends talking.
Me and Mecca were like looking for this club, right?
It was horrible.
We both had to pee like simultaneously.
We were in sync, almost like twins or something.
Well, like we always are, but like we ducked into this movie theater, and like this guy's like, "No, you can't come in here. Da 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 da. You cannot use our toilet."
Like we're gonna steal a toilet or something, right? Stupid. It's a normal bodily function.
Hey, you know, I live a few blocks from here.
So he's all
just
like,
around the corner.
"How do I know you're gonna come back, Missy?"
When I first watched this show, I was blown away by how real the conversations felt. Turns out a mix of improvisation and loose direction really helps make the dialogue feel more natural. In most real-life conversations, people interrupt each other. Though not all the time, conversations are rarely an even back and forth between people. For TV shows and movies, this kind of realism is a lot easier to achieve since everything is scripted and controlled. But for video games, that's a different challenge. Indie horror games, for example, are infamous for bad voice acting and stiff dialogue. Mostly because game companies don't really bother to give their voice actors nearly as much directions as, well, like a show or movie would. And voice acting is largely a secondary aspect in most games.
He must have gotten very lonely, but I got him a new friend. Now, we wait. Wait, no, Nab. We can't let Nab take him.
But then you have games like Hades and Oxenfree, which put in the effort to make dialogue not only sound good, but actually function as part of the gameplay. Hades does this by integrating its voiceover system seamlessly with roguelike mechanics, making sure conversations evolve as you progress.
Tisiphone started to say the strangest things lately, Red Blood. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?
Oh, don't fret. I was just trying to help her expand her somewhat limited vocabulary.
Stay out of her head! You really think she's got something to learn from you? Learn to shut up from her.
Oxenfree, on the other hand, takes a different approach, as it lets the player control conversations in real time, making them feel fluid and organic. The dialogue choices act as more of a game mechanic, as it directly affects the relationship you share with the other characters.
And you guys just met tonight?
Yeah, I'd been out of school, and the timing had just never worked out, so...
And what does that make you to her, then? A second cousin? I don't know.
He's just a guy. What else would he be?
No, but isn't there like a term for it?
Step-brother, technically.
Oh, yeah.
I recently watched the GDC talk by Darren Corby and Greg Kashavin, where they broke down the incredible amount of effort that went into making Hades feel alive through dialogue. With a staggering 21,000 voice lines, it really makes you appreciate how much great writing can elevate a player's experience. Similarly, there's a GDC talk on Oxenfree that explores how its unique dialogue system creates such fluid, natural conversations. So, today, I want to dive into what makes dialogue work in video games, what we can learn from bad examples, and why games like Hades and Oxenfree set the gold standard for dynamic storytelling. Hades does a great job avoiding repetition by making dialogue react to progress. For example, Meg, one of the first bosses, references previous fights, which makes the interaction feel fresh and dynamic.
Hey there, Meg.
Ever stubborn, aren't you? Maybe my whip might make you reconsider whatever it is that you're attempting here.
Your whip's not been all that persuasive in the past.
Maybe persistence will pay off for both of us. Come then.
I'm back, Meg.
And there you are again. Lord Hades ought to lock you up rather than let you run amok in his domain like this.
I'm sure he'd welcome all this feedback from you, Meg. Or maybe you're just pining for my father's job.
I have no envy for your father's position. Besides, I happen to enjoy my own responsibilities.
Unlike many games where NPCs repeat the same line over and over again, Hades evolves its conversation, making each encounter feel unique. Creating a character like Zagreus must have taken quite a bit of time. Feels like the character was written first and the world was built around him. Like other protagonists who constantly talk to themselves or feel annoying, Zagreus feels genuine and full of personality. It's always a joy to hear his banter. Traditional RPGs often have dialogue happen in cutscenes, while Hades keeps the story moving mid-run. Zagreus responds to the gods on the go, making dialogue feel organic and seamless without interrupting the action. Hades proves that great writing isn't just about dialogue, it's about how that dialogue is delivered. Speaking of great dialogue delivery, Oxenfree takes a slightly different approach, but it still nails natural conversation. In Oxenfree, the dialogue is designed to flow organically with real-time decisions, allowing players to jump into conversations without awkward pauses or breaks in immersion. This contrasts with games like Mass Effect, where there's often a noticeable pause between dialogue options and responses, which breaks the flow of conversation.
Commander, you have a minute to talk?
I keep an open door policy. If you have any concerns, lay them on me.
All right. I know things are different aboard the Normandy, but I'm concerned about the aliens, Vicarian and Rex. With all due respect, Commander, should they have full access to the ship?
You don't trust their motives because they're not human.
Or Elder Scrolls, where NPCs stare at you while you decide your response, which can feel pretty stiff and unnatural.
I hope I can help. Necromancy may be legal in Cyrodiil, but few will openly admit to practicing it now that the Mages Guild has banned it. Farewell.
May you rest in peace.
In Oxenfree, though, the dialogue flows naturally, as characters respond in real time, creating a more immersive experience that feels much less like a scripted exchange and more like a conversation you're actually having. One of the key things I found interesting about the Hades GDC talk was how the dialogue doesn't just serve as exposition, it actively drives the story forward. Instead of pausing to explain everything, the game lets you discover the world and its characters through natural interactions. A great example of this is Ellie and Joel's conversations in The Last of Us. Their dialogue isn't just to give exposition, it deepens their relationship and reveals their personality, all while keeping the story moving. This subtle way of revealing backstory through natural banter makes both characters feel real and dynamic.
I was too damn close.
To the edge of the universe and back. Endure and survive.
Excuse me?
Savage Starlight. That comic I've been reading? That's what the hero says after a big battle.
Endure and survive.
Yeah.
Okay.
In contrast, some games like The Park over-explain everything, making the dialogue feel forced and unnatural. Hades avoids this by trusting the player to pick up on context through subtext rather than spelling out everything. This kind of writing allows for more organic storytelling, where the players actively participate in the discovery of the world. Now, looking at how Hades effectively uses dialogue to enhance storytelling, it's important to compare it to examples of good and bad script writing, and how poorly executed dialogue can detract from the experience. If you haven't seen MTV Downtown, it's an animated show from the late 90s that nails realistic casual dialogue. The characters interrupt and talk over each other, making conversations feel genuine.
She's buying stuff and she hasn't even paid me back yet. Not only that, but this morning I found her sleeping on my floor.
You are way too easy on that girl, I'm telling you.
I know.
Gotta smack her around a little bit. Teach her a lesson.
I mean, at least I solved one problem.
What's that?
I talked to my boss, and he's gonna put me on the graveyard shift so I don't have to stay home all night.
Oh, that's a good deal.
This is exactly what dialogue in games should be aiming for. Real conversations, not just exposition. When dialogue flows like real interactions, it deepens our connections to the characters. After learning about how Hades carefully crafts his dialogue, I have a few follow-up questions for the GDC speakers that I'd love to ask them about, and perhaps questions you can ask yourself next time you're developing a game. How do you approach making dialogue feel natural while still delivering important story beats? How do you ensure that the dialogue doesn't just feel like it's there to explain the plot? Do you ever find yourself cutting lines that feel too gamey and rewriting them to sound more organic? How do you strike that balance between delivering story and maintaining a natural tone? What's your take on dialogue in modern horror games? Do you think they'd be more immersive if they took a page from games like Hades or The Last of Us in terms of natural character interactions? It's clear that good dialogue is essential for making a game feel immersive. Whether it's the natural flow of conversations in Downtown or the dynamic interactions in Hades, the key is making characters feel real. Oxenfree takes this a step further by making dialogue a core game mechanic, allowing players to interrupt, change topics, or let moments of silence linger, just like real conversations. On the other hand, bad dialogue can break immersion, just like in the park, where the protagonist constantly dumps exposition instead of letting the story unfold naturally, making the dialogue feel forced and disconnected from the world. Anyway, that's it for me. Thanks for watching.